Rick Price is one of Australia's great musicians, and we had the chance to have a chat to him about a new project which is a celebration of one of his favourite genres of music, that being soul music.
I picked my favourite artists and favourite songs from that era, and then I wrote, with my friend John Capek, I wrote one track as a tribute to Aretha Franklin. The song was called Farewell But Not Goodbye. So there's one original track, but yeah, it's all my favourite soul tracks from the 60s, and that's really how I did it. I thought I've got to narrow it down to a time frame.
The Queen of Soul is the ultimate example of soul music, and you've got a tribute to her on the album. How did you work out how to do a tribute that's fitting of Aretha Franklin?
We didn't really have a lyric for this music, and it sounded very churchy, very kind of gospel, soul. And he sent me this lyric. It just bowled me over. And that was really how the song was born. He wrote the song, I don't think really, even from any perspective, he just wrote the lyric. And when he wrote it, I said to him, this is brilliant. It fits great with the song. And that's when we decided, because there were threads of Aretha and references through it, but we weren't sure that we could really just say, well, this is a song for Aretha Franklin. But that's kind of how it came about. John just put this beautiful lyric together and sent it to me, and it just worked.
There's that amazing documentary about Aretha Franklin that I'm sure you've seen, but for those who haven't, it's a documentary that is the film version of an album from when she was very, very young. It was her singing in front of her father's church. The audio is amazing, but the film is phenomenal. Did that help inspire a greater understanding of the woman?
I watched that documentary. I saw it at a fabulous theatre in Nashville. I absolutely loved it. And it really is a connection, I think, for anyone watching that to really see where Aretha's history and her roots are, because her roots are in gospel music. They call her the Queen of Soul, but and it's a very interesting because there's no pizzazz to that, to the Amazing Grace documentary. It's very raw and simple, and you can see this connection that she has with the music. She's very honest in her performance, is very raw, and this lovely connection she has with her dad, who's a famous minister in the States. So it's a great connection. But I have always felt that Aretha, of course, is the Queen of Soul, and there was so much to learn from her records. You don't even have to talk to her or be taught by her, in person. You can learn from listening to all those records, all her records, and of course all the great soul records that were made at that time. You just listen to the records and learn them and study them. And, that's where I got my insight into that whole style of music.
Rick, we know that you've got one of the great rock and sometimes pop voices, but how did you make sure that you had an authenticity about soul? Can that only come with age and being beaten up by life?
My speaking voice now, in the last probably 5 years or so, my voice has become kind of gravelly and husky, and it's not as pristine as it used to be. But it's sort of a blessing, really, because I always wanted a more gruff voice. I didn't like how clear my voice was. I just needed to sound a bit sexier, a bit raw, And so I've just been blessed with, I don't know quite how it happened, but so that meant that I sort of felt very comfortable taking a raw approach to the vocal, not trying to make it too pristine and perfect, but keeping it raw and honest as I could, And for me, honest singing is just not trying too hard, not thinking about it too much, just trying to shoot from the hip, Now,
the good news tonight is that you have got a regional tour coming up. People will be able to see you with their own eyes and have their spirits lifted by your beautiful voice. What's it like to perform in front of a regional crowd?
Because I've been doing it since I was a little kid, I'm used to tiny, small audiences, and I've also been blessed to play in some larger venues. But there's an intimacy that's easier to grab and easier to get to with a smaller, intimate audience. There's something up close and personal about it. When I go into a larger venue, it just takes a little more work to sort of pull all that energy into if I want to go for that more intimate thing. So it's kind of, yeah, it really helps to make it much more intimate. And also, too, people out in the regional areas are not getting a lot of music. They're not bombarded with, oh, you know, we've got a choice of, 20 different shows tonight. It's like, well, this guy's in town. So,
exactly.
I mean, it comes to be called a sort of slightly more of a special event. And they seem to be very appreciative of that.
Rick Price's new album is called Soulville. It is magnificent, and you can find more information about it at rickprice.com.